Okay.
Oh, and I just wanted to let you know, Mary, since you're, participant here. In the future, at least for right now, we're gonna be going to Zoom only, which isn't gonna affect you in any way.
No, and I prefer that
Yeah.
because then it's easier to see you and to hear you.
Just for right now, it's gonna be.
Now I see the three of you and the background of the tree of life with the plaques, but everything is fuzzy. It's not in focus.
I don't know how
It
to
might
fix
be the
that.
resolution on her computer.
Maybe.
Well, we'll see. We'll see. We are on, oh, you have the same one, 1127.
I'm sorry,
I was just asking.
it was numbers.
Okay, now we're on Numbers 16, verse 1, because there are many different books that people use. That's why we go by that. And we may, without very many people here, I don't know, this is a very difficult read, the story of Torah. And it is, it's something that we may have to go back to next week. I don't know.
It's actually one of bar mitzvah portion.
So since it was Steve's bar mitzvah portion, why don't we let him start reading?
Okay, I'm just trying to find the, if you can bear with me 1 second, I realize time is pressing. But I'm just gonna find the midrash on Korah, because that might be very interesting.
Because there have been many commentaries on this.
Yeah, and I have, yeah, bear with me. Okay. The Korah, okay, and you want me just to start reading?
Why don't you read from verse 1 through verse 11, the end of 11.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Now Korah, the son of Yizhar, the son of Kohat, the son of Levi, with Datan and Abiram, the sons of Eliab and On, the son of Pilat, and sons of Reuben, took men, and they rose up in the face of Moses, with certain of the children of Israel, 250 men. They were princes of the congregation, the elect men of the assembly, men of renown. And they assembled themselves together against Moses and against Aaron, and said unto them, Ye take, and bear with me, because this is my translation. Ye take too much upon you, seeing all the congregation are holy, every one of them, and the Lord is among them. Wherefore then lift ye up yourselves among the assembly of the Lord. And when Moses heard it, he fell upon his face. And he spoke unto Korah and unto all his company, saying, In the morning the Lord will show who are his, and who is holy, and will cause him to come near unto him. Even him who he may choose will he cause to come near unto him. This do. Okay, take you censers, Korah, in all his company, and put fire therein, and put incense upon them before the Lord tomorrow. And it shall be that the man whom the Lord doth choose, he shall be holy. Ye take too much upon you, ye sons of Levi. And Moses said unto Korah, Hear now, ye sons of Levi, is it but a small thing unto you that the God of Israel has separated you from the congregation of Israel to bring you near to himself, to do the service of the tabernacle of the Lord, and to stand before the congregation to minister unto them? And that he hath brought thee near, and all thy brethren, the sons of Levi, with thee, and will ye seek the priesthood also? Okay. Was that it? Was it 1 through 10? Or?
Yeah. Yes, your translation is so far removed from what we have written, which is okay.
Yeah.
I'm going to ask you would be kind to read verses 1 through 11 also, because the English, that is Old English, and now modern English.
Okay, well, excuse me if I messed up some of these names. I'm
It's
not
okay.
used to this.
Don't worry.
Now, Korah, son of Aisha, son of Kohath, son of Levi, he took himself along with Dathan and Abiram, sons of Elabib, and On, son of Elah, descendants of Reuben, to rise up against Moses, together with 250 Israelites, chieftains of the community, chosen in the assembly, men of repute. They combined against Moses and Aaron and said to them, "You have gone too far, for all the community are holy, all of them, and the Lord is in their midst. Why then do you rate yourselves above the Lord's congregation?" When Moses heard this, he fell on his face. Then he spoke to Korah. Then he spoke to Korah and all his company, saying, "Good morning. The Lord will make known who he is and who is holy, and will grant him access to himself. He will grant access to the one he has chosen. Do this, you, Korah, and all your band. Take fire pans, and tomorrow put fire in them and lay incense on them before the Lord. Then the man whom the Lord chooses, he shall be the Holy One. You have gone too far, sons of Levi." Moses said further to Korah, "Hear me, sons of Levi. It is not enough for you that the God of Israel has set you apart from the community of Israel and given you access to him to perform the duties of the Lord's tabernacle and to minister to the community and serve them. Thus he has advanced you and all of your fellow Levites with you. Yet you seek the priesthood too." That's right. That's the end of that.
Goes to the end of the
Okay. "Truly, it is against the Lord that you and all your company have band together. For who is Aaron and that you should rile against him?"
Okay, now I just want to, I should have prefaced everything. Since we've had a hiatus, there have been many, if you will, episodes of approaching Moses and by the people. And at each step of the way, because they have been challenging Moses and indirectly challenging God, a lot has befallen those who were the leaders of those events, and also the Jewish people who followed some of these other people. So, and we had discussed about the tzitzit on the talus. Okay, so we had already covered this, and so what we're going to hear today is another rebellion, because it's not just a few, it's a large group of people, as we're going to hear, and also it is being led by one of the Levites, but they're descended from he's descended from a Levi, of the Levi clan, but he is going to say, "Hey, you to Moses, you and Aaron have all these benefits. What about the rest of us? What makes you better than us?" Okay, and that's going to come up as we read through this. I think that's a good summary for the beginning. And now there's a lot of commentary, just even what we've been reading. So if Steve, I know, wants to have a comment, and the rabbis and everyone else, just, raise your hand and I'll call on you. So go ahead, Steve, first.
I just wanted to,
Yeah.
there's some interesting, again, as usual, the Midrash does like what happens in a novel. You can't just introduce characters, but you want to give the characters some depth and develop the character. And the Midrash develops the character of Korah a little bit. So, because we don't know a whole lot about him, except that he's a prominent individual that was a little bit swell-headed and figured that, you know, he was entitled as well. So here's some, you know, midrash about this, okay? He was a rich person, they say, okay? How did Korach become rich? This is from the Talmud, this is midrash. The other
Right,
one,
it's- No, yeah, it's midrash.
yeah,
Right, it's
yeah,
not
yeah.
in-
So
It's
it's-
always from the Talmud.
Yeah, right.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm just
Yeah.
explaining, I
Yeah,
wasn't
right.
saying it's a special
So
midrash,
you
but
understand this.
just explaining for the benefit of those, but
There are a lot of empty spaces.
so they're saying here, how did Korach become rich? The other members of the tribe of Levi lived in poverty. Interesting. They had carried away no gold or silver from Egypt. Moshe's command that every Jew take money and vessels from the Egyptians referred only to those tribes who had performed slave labor, since the Leviim had not labored for the Egyptians, but were free and studied Torah. That's again part of the midrash, you know, that I don't know if that was really what happened. They received no money in recompense at the Exodus. At the Yam Suf, the Leviim refrained from taking the spoils of Egypt because they attached no value to worldly possessions. They were totally immersed in Torah study. Throughout the years of the wilderness, the Leviim lived without means, dedicating themselves purely to spiritual concerns. Only Korach was money hungry. In Egypt, he had been a treasurer for Pharaoh. Okay, he had hoped that the Jews would remain in Egypt after the redemption, and he would then become the owner of the royal treasury. Hashem, okay, or God who leads each person in life along the path he wishes to be led, satisfied Korach's craving for money by letting him discover a part of the treasure that Yosef had concealed in the royal coffers. So very, very complicated subplots here, okay? This discovery made Korach one of the wealthiest people who ever lived, okay? However, since he misused his wealth to rebel against the Torah, he was punished midah keneged midah, as they say in Hebrew, or in proportion to his transgression, okay? No trace of his fortune remained. It disappeared together with him in the ground. So
Okay.
that's a little bit of a spoiler.
Okay.
No, but I'm
All
not going way ahead, actually. That's just mentioned here, okay? But it's a midrash on his, you know, on his character.
Steve, excuse me. Is this relevant to the story that we are reading, what you're telling, how
Yeah.
it was reached?
Well, it's just the traditional rabbinic embellishment or enhancement of the story.
Yeah, but it doesn't even mention here that he was rich. It doesn't even mention that. So how is this relevant to the story that he was rich?
Good question. I don't know how they assumed that he was rich, you know?
No, I'm saying that.
But I'm not an expert in the midrash. I don't know how they.
Yeah, I know, but well, never mind. Keep going. That's fine.
And there another just one more interesting thing. Okay, that I'm going to add. Tiferet Zion, which I assume is some rabbinic tome. I don't know what it is. Tiferet Zion.
It's commentary.
Oh, right, it's a commentary. Tiferet Zion explains that although Korach lacked the refinement of character necessary for receiving prophecy, Ruach HaKodesh nevertheless rested upon him because he lived in an environment that was conducive to Ruach HaKodesh. This was the case, for example, when Shaul's messenger came to Shmuel, the spirit of Hashem then rested upon them. So just an interesting little elaboration here that, you know, that even though he was a bad guy, apparently he was in an environment that enabled him to have some bit of Ruach HaKodesh on him, even though he misused his
Okay.
Okay, so let me jump in with a
Yeah.
couple of thoughts. Right from the beginning, we might think that there's a universal negative response to Korah. Okay,
That's right.
given what they call the pshat, the simple story. You know, wait a minute. Here's somebody who's rebelling and challenging the authority, you know, and whatever. But the commentaries and the tradition, mostly by picking words or phrases out of context, I would admit, find some interesting lessons that can be derived, okay? And one of the first questions is in the very first couple words, okay? Vaikach Korach, Korach took, right? Now, many of the commentaries say, oh, there's a word missing. The word anashim, that he took other men with him, right? I don't know, you know, what we different have. I have two translations here.
Right.
One says that he took men,
Right.
they filled in the blank, and another one says, no, he took himself. He betook himself,
Right.
so to speak, you know, that he raised himself, and others were very, you know, populist kind of movement followed below. But the other, and you know, we'll see the story. Okay. You have to remember that when Korach stands up and says to Moses and Aaron, you know, you're not the only ones who are holy, right? The whole population is holy. He's paraphrasing Leviticus chapter 19.
Right.
Moses, you told us, Kedoshim Tihiyu. You told us we're all holy.
Right.
Okay, so why are you claiming this just for yourselves? Okay, Moses, Aaron, whatever. So I'll throw that one out, and that was an easy way for others to, oh, hey, that's right. You know, that's right. Moses and Aaron aren't letting us fulfill our ideal of being holy also, whatever that meant to them in those days. The other thing that I would point out is that this, yes, as Marty, as you said, there are other conflicts and rebellions and challenges and whatever, but this is the one that rabbinic lore focuses on as the main challenge, not only to Moses, but to God.
Right.
So much so that in Pirkei Avot, in Ethics of the Fathers and the Mishnah, that when they make a distinction between debates and discussions, that you can have a discussion, you can have a debate, and two valid sides, if you will, if the debate is l'shem shamayim, for the sake of heaven, right? And they give a couple examples. But a debate like the debate of Korach is not kosher. That's not valid. Okay, it doesn't have authority and shouldn't be listed in. You know, when we talk of that, you present both a majority and a minority opinion, and both this one and that one can be words of the same living God kind of phrase, but they exclude those arguments, debates, challenges like Korach. Okay, so
You know, this
Now,
opens,
we had before, actually, Aaron and Miriam are the
Yes.
complainers. Why you, Moshe? We're coming from the same family. So that kind of questioning authority happened before. Yeah, I know that Korach is the symbol of rebellion towards authorities. And since I myself would say that one of my ways of operating in this world is questioning authority, I'm going to side with Korach in this case, and really that quotation of we are all holy and God is among us and within us. So who are you that, you know, yeah, God gave you, well, you don't have any proofs for that, but you are the boss and you tell us what to do. And the same thing happened when the spies went to the land of Canaan and came back and said, well, listen, guys, it's very dangerous there, let's not go. It's also a rebellion that has been punished very, very harshly. As a group of people that are not in the best of the stages of, you know, they are in the, let's say that they are in the desert, they don't have food, they are upset and so forth, it makes a lot of sense to question. And it seems like it's so much not what becomes later on with our Talmud, that questioning is a good thing, and we pride ourselves as a religion, as a community, as a belief group of questioning, not taking things as is or as we are told. We used to have in the Torah study a woman called Inderberg. Yeah, and she would say, I became Jewish because in Catholicism they told me, and here I can ask questions. So it's like a trait that we have, and I'm going to be a public defender for Korach and Adato as we speak.
Well, even Orthodox rabbis have done that, taken on that challenge also, which is interesting because they're looking at both sides of the issue. However, I think that there's something being left out. One is trying to make himself a social leader, and the other has been appointed by God to be the leader or the prophet. You have Aaron, who is going to be the priest, and you have Moses, who is going to be the prophet. And both of these, right from the get-go, the story is they have been given the power, those positions by God. He has chosen them. So in my mind, you have two different levels of dispute. One is if you lower Moses' status and you make him part of the community, Korath is right. Who gives him, what gives him the right to do this? But what's left out of the equation is the fact that we have already read that God has consistently said, you have been the chosen one. And the people have also been chosen to be holy, but for what purpose? It's also, and that's left out. You have to go back and say, why are the people chosen to be holy? Go ahead, Steve.
Yeah, well, I
Can
think you have to see the whole.
answer that question?
No, but
Okay.
I think there's, we have to keep in mind that this was an age when leadership was endowed. Endowed in some way, by God, by anointment. It was always endowed, and the leader was given those powers, and those powers couldn't be, this was not democracy. Democracy came much later.
Yes.
So the fact that all the people are holy, that doesn't imply democracy, okay? Or that there's any sort of, voice. So even though we are people that do question, and questioning is good, in this age, leadership was absolute, and had to be respected. So, part of that, was that Moses was endowed with this leadership, and it couldn't be questioned. And I'm going to ask you, it's just that rabbis threw in this is part of Jewish folklore, I think, the Midrash. And it's, even though it may not pertain to the real story as it appears in the Torah, it's interesting for us to look at the age and how they came up with these stories. Interestingly, the rabbis also threw in Korach's wife as
Well,
a
that's
character.
that's gonna come up. That's right.
Is it gonna come up? So I can mention it later if you want, but there's Midrash on Korach's
That's
wife that, you know, this was the rabbis, and this is a little bit, you know, not, or you could say anti-feminist, but, you know, they're sort of saying, look, not only was, Korach, you know, had these thoughts, but his wife was sort of pushing him
And,
in that direction, so.
can I just I need to add something to the
Okay,
table.
please.
Okay, all right, the table and to the screen and whatever.
Mhm.
Edward G. Robinson was one of
He
my
was very
mother's
good, Dave.
favorite
Yes.
actors.
Yes,
Okay, just to lay it at that.
yes, Nathan.
Oh, and he
No, he was
played,
Korach.
He
oh,
was
he
good.
played Korach. Oh,
Edward G. Robinson was Korach.
Oh,
What was the name of the movie?
Ten Commandments.
Ten
Oh, the Ten Commandments.
Cecil B. DeMille's
Okay.
Midrash.
No.
okay. But my question was asked, what makes you holy in the eyes of God? And it's stated earlier I guess
In many ways,
in many ways, but it's
Leviticus is.
Leviticus,
Right.
it does. You know, why are these people being chosen as a holy people? If, go ahead.
I rarely translate the phrase "you are holy."
Right.
I translate it as "you shall be holy," or "you
Right,
can
that's
be
what
holy."
it says.
You have the potential to be holy if
Right.
you follow whether it's the
Mhm.
Ten Commandments,
Right.
whether it's the other mitzvot that are listed right there in the same paragraph. You know, the ethical behavior, sharing, taking care of the widow and the poor and the orphan, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Or, you know, leaving a corner of the field, but I'll love your neighbor as yourself. All those that are right there in that paragraph.
Mhm.
Those are illustrations of how to be holy. It's not that it, you know, innately that
Right.
you are holy.
But it's important to say that the word in Hebrew, kadosh, is inaccurately translated as holy.
Sure.
It doesn't
Okay.
actually mean
So
holy,
what is-
because in our image, holy means, oh, you've got a
No.
halo on your head and you're.
Well, say sacred. You prefer sacred?
It means dedicate. It means you are mukdash, you know,
Okay.
is like dedicated or so you have a role that's,
Mhm.
you know.
And
Yeah.
what, and it's not speaking about it. It's not just saying, you know, telling people what to do or things like that. It is doing all of the things that make you, you know, that shall make you holy are action verbs.
Sure.
Are associated with it.
Sure.
So therefore,
Ours is a faith of,
That's right.
of a deed, not creed.
right,
Actions speak louder than
Mhm.
words.
Yeah.
perfect.
Right.
And and so as a result, I think here that Korach is saying, hey, wait a minute, all of us are holy, but I think he misses the definition of what was actually meant. And I think the rabbi hits it on the head. You have the potential of being holy if you follow and you do as not just as I've commanded, but that you live a life with certain values, namely, and as has been said multiple ways, don't do unto others what you don't want them to do unto you. And that is a simple summary of the whole book. We've discussed that a bit in the past as well. So Korach is even challenging. Korach is even challenging the Torah it can be said he's challenging Torah. He's challenging the word of God. He's challenging God in addition to the challenge he's making to Moses and Aaron. And I think that now it's so blatant, you know, that and nobody's listened to all these warning signs, and yet they still go ahead with it. Go ahead.
There's another midrash
Yes.
that some of the earliest reform thinkers back in Germany in the 1860s, 1870s used to quote, because they love the idea of being compared to Korah. You know, okay, you know, we're challenging and
That's right.
And they quoted a midrash, I forget its exact source, that Korah, when Korah says you've gone too far,
Mhm.
you know, Rav Lachem is the Hebrew, said that he says to Moses, you've gone too far. The Midrash says what he's talking about is all of these minutia, all of these little details, all of these, well, you've got to measure this down to the, you know, closest hin of a payoff of this and that, and, you know, too much.
That's right.
Too much. The only thing we should be concerned about is our ethical behavior.
Right.
And, you know, and they focus on that phrase, Rav Lachem. You know, we don't need all these details, you know, It was one of the bases for the early reform rejecting so many of those, you know, of those rituals and stuff. What's most important is the message of the prophets. And what's most important is how to be holy, not necessarily doing all of these little things. Just another midrash, just to draw.
But
It's interesting that Moshe is not called Kadosh. I cannot recall anywhere that says Moshe is Kadosh.
right.
Now, so that's one thing. The other one is that Korach and the people don't say to Moshe, why do you think that you are Kadosh and we are not? What they complain about is itnasu, which is, why do you think that you can be above us and raise yourself, you know? In modern Hebrew, we say itnaseh, it's like lashvitz, you know, to think that you are above, that you do better than. So the complaint is not we are Kedoshim and or you are more you think you are more Kadosh than we are. That's not the complaint. The complaint is that you are up there, itnasu, above, and you tell us what to do. That's the complaint in my mind, and not about the status of, oh, well, you think you are closer to God than we are. That's not what I read in here.
Okay. Any other comments? One thing I just want to say, this reading is very important because all of the subsequent kings, not only in Israel, in the house of Israel,
Marty, speak up, please, a little.
not only in the kings in the house of Israel, but of the kings that come much later in Christianity, they all required the church to justify their, it had to be their kingship had to be sanctified by the church. And this posed a big problem.
Right.
And that comes to a head in our own rebellion with the separation of church and state. Because which church are you going to? Remember, our country was founded by, you know, a whole series of changes in the monarchy because different churches were involved as the monarch believed at that time. So it sort of dovetails into our discussion here. who has the ultimate authority. And it has, when you look at Torah, okay, it says, it's very clear that Moses and Aaron have been chosen by God. It's a total, it really is separate. But in order to form a people, a nation, you have to have certain rules, not just of conduct, and not just doing what each person believes it should be done that way, but you have to have a standard that's met. And this is a very high standard if you take the Torah to heart. If you follow every one of the mitzvot, if you follow, it's a very high standard that's almost humanly impossible to follow.
Absolutely.
And so maybe it's meant to be that way because it still separates the state from God.
You also have a stream in, I guess you'd have to call it Jewish historiography, that that this is another, in some ways it's an example of the power struggle between those who followed Moses and those who followed the Levitical. With not necessarily Aaron, although later on they call it the Aaronites, but it's the same kind of thing. Are we a religious community or are we a culturally defined community? And each of them go back into the history to try into the biblical literature and whatever to try to find justification for that, because it continues all the way into the Zionist thinking.
That's
But
if you go back to Dinah, the story of Dinah, there's the Levites they're very, it's like an automatic knee-jerk reaction.
Sure.
To take matters into their own hands. And to run with that. You slay people. You do things that are very violent. So maybe that's something, I don't know if it's genetic, but it does come up in the family line. So it's something to think about.
I was just thinking that, because that has crossed my mind. As I look at the who begot who, it's like, my first thought was, who cares? But now I see the absolute relevance in family lineage. And personality, and what, do we learn it? Or is it innate in us to behave in certain ways? That I don't know.
I don't know.
Nature versus nature, I have no idea. That, I think it's really important because I've gone back and I'm rereading some of this stuff because I'm thinking, I can really see patterns in this now. And it makes a lot more sense the way you explained it.
All right, thank you. Any other discussion here? I wish we had more people because of this.
I have lots of questions, but I'll just keep my mouth shut.
No, go ahead.
So
No, I'll get to them later.
This
I
is
don't
so-
want to shoot myself in the foot.
there's
No, please don't think, any question is absolutely appropriate.
okay. Now, we've come across this before in verse 4. Moses falling on his face.
Right.
Well, it's a metaphor
Or euphemism.
or euphemism, right?
Yeah.
And what would you say about that?
Well, why is it a euphemism?
Well, does he plop down on the ground and,
Right.
He just did it long time.
His face fell, kind of,
Yeah, that's
kind of,
right.
it's a phrase.
Well, maybe, but actually, I'm sort of imagining it, when I imagine the movie scene, I'm imagining him actually physically falling, because that's a little bit of Middle Eastern melodrama. You know,
but that's my next question, is what,
Well, that's,
Yeah.
why is that his reaction?
yeah,
Oh,
Why does he do that? If he indeed prostrates himself, you know,
yes,
why is he doing that? Is it
yeah,
disappointment? Is it disgrace? Is it anger? Is it asking God for guidance?
right.
What is he doing? What, right,
it's
that's
intense Middle Eastern drama that you know, there is not, it's you know, I guess we as a people, we belong to the Middle Eastern tribes, and there's a tendency to intensify the emotional
no question.
reactions. So
No
he is sort of grabbing the moment and enhancing it with a little drama, like it's so important. He thinks that he wants to call attention to whoever happens to be seeing this whole encounter, you know, that this is a major thing, what's going on here. So the first thing he does is falls on his face so everybody can gasp and you know what's going on. So it's not exactly that he is awed by Korach. He obviously is not awed by Korach. He thinks Korach is overstepping himself, but he is demonstrating that this is a moment of importance and calling attention to that.
Sure.
Okay,
In the most dramatic way possible.
Just did it a few chapters ago. He just did the same.
that's
When
right.
he asked for food, I think it was the food, and it's when he said, "I'm fed up with you guys," and so forth. I think that that's the instance that he also was, you know, maybe it's just desperation, or maybe that's how he thought the best way to communicate with a godliness answer. I'm not sure. I'm with, yeah, I don't know his reasons to do it. I'm with Steve that it was done there, and we have that in Yom Kippur, and so I don't know. It's a way of praying or praising him.
On Yom Kippur, that's a specific described action
Right.
modeled after what the Kohen got, after what the high priest did. You know,
Yeah.
but most of the commentaries, incidentally, I mean, I like what Steve was
Yeah.
saying, yeah, you know, draw attention to this, hey, this is really serious, and da. Most of the traditional commentaries say that he's praying.
Praying to
He's saying, you know,
yes.
he's saying,
What should I
okay,
do?
God, you know, what do I do in this moment?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's also a sign of humility, and you feel powerless at the time. Is another way of looking at it.
Well,
How do I
does he want to
handle it?
demonstrate powerlessness in front of Korach?
No, but inside him, what am I going to do about this? I feel powerless to do this. Help me. You know, that type of
Right,
reaction.
you know, or as Steve said, you know, if it, and Rabbi Meir, if this is a gesture that the people have seen him do before at these extremely important moments, it's not, you know, he may feel powerless,
Mhm.
all right, but the people are gonna say, oh, wow, he's demonstrating how important this is.
Right.
Yeah,
Yes,
it's
also,
just,
yeah.
it's a few degrees above just giving a gashrai and saying oy vey is actually falling on
Right.
your face physically.
Right.
So
Yeah.
Because right after that, in verse 5, after doing this, he now understands what he needs to do. He figures out because all of a sudden Moses says, then he spoke to Korach and all his company, saying, come morning, the Lord will make known who is his and who is holy, and who will grant him access to himself.
The word then is not, is not in the Hebrew incidentally.
Okay,
Yeah, so we don't know if it was, 30 seconds later, or if it
would have
was,
been,
if it was 3 hours later, right, okay.
but something goes on in that space. I don't know if there's midrash about that gap.
About one
It
guy.
might be.
There may be, I don't
I'm
know.
not
I don't know.
probably,
There could be-
yeah.
Well, the gap being that, Moses falls, his face, falls on his face. And then the very next thing is, he gets up and he's speaking to Torah.
In other words,
Yeah,
the editor could have put verse 4 into the same paragraph
yes,
as verse, as 1, 2, 3, and then with verse 5 started a whole new paragraph.
that's right.
As if it, right.
Editor's choice. And then, has this, happened before in different ways in Torah?
What?
This type of behavior, this challenge in verse 5, okay? Has this happened before in the Israelites' history?
A line in the sand?
With
Is that what you mean?
that God is going to show who's boss, who he has chosen. Right. And
Well, Cain and Abel both offered sacrifices, and one was spontaneously combusted and the other wasn't, because it wasn't steam, but
well,
that's God indicating who is finding favor in his sight by it's a test of, to find out what God's feelings are about the moment. So you have sacrifice pans up or sacrifices up, and the one that spontaneously combusts is
the
the one that's chosen.
Because
that's what he's talking about.
Pan,
Yeah,
not the
yeah,
person.
that's what he's talking about.
But the other thing that came to mind were the situation with the Pharaoh. Similar, it's a similar type of questioning. And God is
Oh, there's some sort of demonstration of
God
God showing who's being
power,
chosen.
his
Yeah.
power. And I wonder if so that's what popped into my mind is, in reading this, that it's a challenge. Here you're challenging God. Well, the Pharaoh was challenging God in a way. And because Moses is saying God sent me, he uses, another word for God, and Pharaoh says, I don't know who you're talking about. Sounds familiar from our discussion today. And it becomes a challenge between the Pharaoh and his cadre, okay, versus God and his humble cadre. And who wins? Well, this is a demonstration. Now, why does Moses pick the fire pans? Would that ring a bell?
Well, again, there's a saying that Ein mukdam ve'ein mu'achar
You
b'Torah.
say it loud so that.
Ein mukdam ve'ein mu'achar b'Torah, that you have the freedom sometimes, and in our modern perspective, we know that sometimes things were embellished after the fact or rewritten a bit. There was a sort of a standard test mode of the true prophets versus the false prophets,
Mhm.
putting out the pans and
Yes.
seeing which one, like I just said.
That goes
Which
to
one-
prophets, and that's-
But well, it's the challenge to the prophets of Baal versus, who was that? Was that
That's
prophet?
Elijah.
Elijah, okay.
But I, what you may be referring to is the Nadav and Avihu, the sons of.
Well, that's what
Aaron.
my next, that was my second question.
Right, yeah, right,
Right.
who improperly
Right,
brought fire pans.
So
And that must have been that must have been an experience that everyone remembered.
right. So with Moses, so that's maybe why Moses is choosing the fire pans. Or maybe since he's a prophet, God is saying it through Moses. Let's remind you of the fire pans. Would, at that point, if would Korah have a choice? Or is his heart so hardened that he's going to follow his, what he feels? Hey, I'll take any challenge and I'll do it. I'm gonna show I have equal power. And maybe, this is like a warning sign, don't, and Moses saying, or God through Moses saying, don't forget, if you don't do it right, you're gonna go up in a flash. As Aaron's sons did. And so, but maybe when you get so bullheaded, you forget what you should be remembering. I know I do.
Except the story is also a
It's
story.
my midrash.
No, but the story, the story is also a story, so a story has a little bit of drama and a little bit of tension. So he doesn't exactly impart that important bit of information to Korah, that guess what, if you fail this test, the ground is gonna open and swallow you up, and a lot of other things are gonna happen. He just
Well,
says very
Yeah,
simply,
we're not at that one yet.
well, yes,
Right.
but he just says very simply, you take your fire pans, we'll take our fire
Well,
pans.
yeah.
Well,
it's-
we'll see which
Well,
one gets
I don't
accepted.
see it that way. I see it that this is the first test of the non-Levites,
Right,
which is the, Datan and Abiram,
right.
who are non-Levites. They're descendants of Reuben. So they wouldn't be trained in the proper way of using fire pans. Okay, so Moses is saying, okay, if all of you think that you're qualified to do this, bring fire pans and let's see
Yeah.
what happens.
Yeah.
Okay,
But-
and God will show us.
Which brings to mind another sidetrack. And that is remembering. When you see some, two kids of somebody who's considered very important go up in a blaze because they didn't do it right, it points to how short our memory can be as human beings. Because this sequence is going on over a long period, not that long period of time. Even if it's going over a year or 2 years or 3 years.
It's only like 8 chapters.
Yeah, that's right. But the point I'm making is that even today, you may see something in the news, and then a month later, it's as if it never happened. And I didn't know that, but I saw it, but I should have remembered it. And maybe this is for us to remember. It's more important to remember what has gone on in the past, so that you don't necessarily repeat the same error.
I think part of it is that, human nature is human nature.
Yeah,
That I have no idea if they intended these books to be, or these comments for posterity, or whatever happened. But sometimes you just have to use shock value to get a message across. If you say, God makes the sun come up in the morning, plus I said it comes up every morning and you take it for granted.
Right.
that you no longer take it for granted. It becomes real. And it has consequences one way or the other.
Mhm.
For every action, reaction. That there is always a consequence to what we're doing. The guy sounded a little arrogant to me, but I wasn't there, so what do I know?
Which one sounded arrogant?
That Corey,
Cora.
yeah, he sounded just a little arrogant. Yeah, or at least the way it's described
Yes.
here. Yeah, I mean, the way I see it being described.
Well, again, the victor is the one who wrote the book,
Yes,
Right.
not the loser.
Yes.
Right, so, okay.
yes, the victor's always right.
Also, yeah, Hertz has a comment too,
Go ahead. Go
but
ahead.
which is probably quoting other comments, but it's important to realize that, you know, that as general Levites, they aren't qualified to even present
right.
sacrifice.
That's right.
They're not. It's only for Kohanim. So, you know, he's sort of forcing them in the position. This is a ritual by ordeal, but he's also forcing them into a position of, you know, fulfilling functions of the priesthood, where they're not qualified for. And then, you know, if he's really so sure of himself, maybe God will make an exception, but, you know, not likely. As was shown,
That's right.
previously.
Any other discussion?
Just to point out,
Sure.
again, you know, because at the end of 7, Moses comes back at Korach with the same words. Okay, Ralph Lachem, enough. And, you know,
Yes.
stop it, you know,
You've gone too far.
it's the same words back at him.
Meaning not enough kind of thing. Not enough that you're Levites, you also want to be Kohanim.
Yeah, right.
So get used to have what you have and don't.
Gone too far.
That's it.
Oh,
The other thing is that, you know, the Levites had a lot of time in its hand. They didn't have to walk to where to work the fields, you know, they didn't have fields. They had only just to clean the tabernacle because they didn't have any area to do. It would make sense that the Levites said, you know, I'm just a cleaner. I'm just, you know, someone that doesn't have anything, and you didn't give me anything. It's a lot of COVID, but actually, the only thing I do is help others. They don't have much independence in their life. They depend on the other tribes giving them to eat. They depend on, yeah, that's what they depend on the taxes. They are civil workers. So it's maybe it's a feeling of we're just manual workers without anything to show for. And that's an interesting way if I want to go into a metaphorical thing, you know. What's wrong with your work? You're very important anyway. You can be just cleaning the floor, but it's part of the entire work that needs to be done. You know, you cannot say I'm just a teacher, although many people do, or I'm just a PE teacher. Well, we need that too. So it's metaphorically, it's the kind of claim that it's not just questioning the leader, but not liking the place in which they are.
Oh, yeah. I understand what you're saying. Yes, Steve, you had your.
No, just
Go ahead.
an interesting
Yeah.
additional midrash. Again, this is an embellishment. This is,
Sure.
you know, added on, but it's an exchange between Korach and Korach's wife. According to the midrash, okay? And Korach's wife asks Korach, okay, what halacha did Moshe teach you today in Beit HaMikdash? Okay, well, he taught us the laws of tzitzit. wearing knotted strings, of which one is tchelet. One is that, blue
The one
color,
blue,
okay,
one blue string.
or whatever it is, yeah, not exactly blue, but. So, Korach said, okay, Moshe, and what is this tchelet, she asked, okay? Korach said, Moshe said, attach strings to your garments, of which one must be of blue wool, dyed with the blood of the creature, Chilazon, which has been translated as snail, okay? Korach's wife said, see what silly laws he teaches you. Why should, she's almost like Haman's wife a little bit, pushing, okay? See what silly laws he teaches you. Why should you have only one tchelet string attached to your garment? I can make you a garment that is completely tchelet, okay? This provided Korach with an idea for opposing Moshe, okay? And that's actually got a footnote, so somewhere in the top of that story.
That's connected to the midrash that I was talking about. That
Rob
Lachem,
Yeah.
too many of these details.
Yeah.
These little minutia, right?
That's in here.
Picky,
Oh,
picky,
okay.
right? Yeah.
By the way, this is so interesting that in this book by Rabbi Sachs, Covenant and Conversation, he devotes 4 entire chapters just to Korah.
Oh, of course.
And this comes up in that the book. Anyway, any other discussion that we want to have so far?
We read all the way through
The end of 11,
right?
yes.
Then he moves on from the fire pans.
Right. So Steve,
No, mine is the archaic translation.
all right, it doesn't make any, so if you would care to read verses 12 through
22.
20, yeah, 20, 20, why don't we do it? Yeah, up to 20, yeah, through the end of 22. That'll be fine.
Okay, so just help me out with the words. So Moses said to Jorath and Aaron, sons of Elabah, that they said, we will not come. Is it not enough that you brought us from a land flowing with milk and honey to have us die in the wilderness? Then would also lord it over us, even if you have brought us flowing with milk and honey and given us possession of fields and vineyards. Should you gouge out these men's eyes? We will not come. Moses was much aggravated, and he said to the Lord, pay no regard to their oblation. I have not taken the ass by any of them, and nor have I wronged any of them. And Moses said to Korah, tomorrow you and your company appear before the Lord, you and they and Aaron. Each of you take his fire, his fire pan. Okay, and I just lost my place, and lay incense on it, and each of you bring his fire pan before the Lord. 250 fire pans. You and Aaron also bring your fire pans. Each of them took his fire pan, put fire in it, laid incense on it, and took his place at the entrance of the tent of meeting, as did Moses and Aaron. Korah gathered the whole community against them at the entrance of the tents of the meeting. Then the presence of the Lord appeared to the whole community, and the Lord spoke to Moses and Aaron, saying, stand back from this community, that I may annihilate them in an instant. But they fell on their faces and said, oh God, source of flesh, when one man sins, will you wrathful? And that's the end. The Lord spoke to Moses, saying, speak to the community and say, withdraw from the abodes of Korah and Dathan and Abram.
Okay. Any comments or discussion? Michael, hi, and
Hi.
great. I know we got wrapped up in everything. I just want to say we are on number 16. And we've been reading from 12. Yes, 12 all the way through the end of 24.
Got it. Thank you.
Welcome.
16 to 24.
Yes. So any comments from Steve?
Well,
You wanna do that?
there's
Sure.
several from quotes that are possibly from the Midrash also, but on verse 14, there is that moreover thou hast brought us into a land flowing with milk and honey, nor given us inheritance of. So there's a sort of an ironic reference here of the land in 13. In 13 they say they're referring to Egypt as ironically as a land flowing with milk and honey, somewhat insolently, okay, because that's actually the description that Moses uses of the promised land, okay, not Egypt, certainly not. And there's also in 14, there's another satiric reference to the disaster that overtook the Israelites when, despite the warning of Moses, they attempted to enter Canaan directly, okay? And wickedly, Datan and Abiram, now by insinuation, shift the blame for that disaster on Moses himself. And he quotes Wiener on that, another commentator. And also put out the eyes as, are you trying to blind us to the true facts?
Or fool us.
Yeah.
And it jumps as of, the stage is now set. Okay, Moses has told them what they need to do, and all the actors are there on the stage, but now it's God
Right.
who takes it to the next level.
That's right.
It's not Moses.
And if I'm understanding that the sort of the narrative there, it sounds like God is on the verge of destroying everybody, not just,
Yeah.
and
Well,
so he says that God gives a, Moses says, are you gonna destroy all the people now, or
Sounds familiar.
at least on
Right,
this,
right,
but
yeah.
but, and so God says, okay, no, tell the people to separate themselves from the bad guys and just keep their distance, and
Right.
nothing will happen to them. But Moses had to intervene for that to happen.
Yeah, so there's gotta be, I don't know if it's in your collection, but there's gotta be some midrash and commentary on what's going through Moses's mind at that point, right? Okay, he must have been standing much closer to the rebels for the statement to be made.
Yes.
God, the presence of God, whatever, God to say to Moses and Aaron, no, move, otherwise you're gonna be destroyed too. So, there must have been something that Moses was still, either whether as the leader, he felt he still had responsibility for them, even though they were challenging him. That's a possibility. Was he standing up for them? That they had every right to be challenging, and we could work this out. God have mercy on them, kind of that, whatever. That's an interesting. I don't remember offhand, but in the more in the more extensive midrashic collections, like you say, Sachs has 5 pages worth or whatever.
Verse 19. It says Korah gathered the whole community against them. So that means everyone. Not just the 250. It's the whole community, no?
Yes, yeah, but again, against them just means like in front of them.
That's
Doesn't
right.
mean, it doesn't mean in opposition to.
Now, one of the issues that we have with these challenges is they don't go into the tent of the meeting, but right outside the tent of the meeting.
Yeah, only Moses and Aaron built it. at any point.
That's right, and the third. Someone or something is,
Goes into the tent of meeting?
no, dwells there.
Oh, God's presence, God's
God,
presence,
so
right.
so Moses and Aaron and God. Okay.
Mhm.
Or inside, from the inside, so is Moses standing there in the doorway?
Well, yes, I
Yeah.
mean,
Symbolically.
don't forget there's a day in between,
That's right.
all right? Moses says, okay, tomorrow morning, everybody come and this is what's gonna happen. So Moses and Aaron slept inside the tent of meeting, whatever it was, or they had their morning coffee and, and whatever, and then they open the flap and there everyone is there, right?
Go ahead, Steve.
But it's not the entire Ada, it's not the entire Israel. According to what we read here, he talks to Korach and on verse 16, and he says, Ata v'kol adatcha. Those are the people that need to bring the fires there at Machtato, or the whatever it's called. So the conversation is not to the entire Am Israel. It's just to Korach and the guys the gang that he brought with him, the Dotan and Avitan and their families or whatever. But it's called Vaikahel Aleem Korach et Kol Ha'edah, means all the group that he had. It's not all the children of Israel, according to Miri.
Yeah, I think,
Okay.
you can make the case either way.
Yeah.
Sometimes they would say, that all of Israel, they would call it Kaal. But, and this is the Edah, this is the band kind of thing, but you can read it either way. I'm not contradicting Rabbi Yuri, but I don't think, I think it's in the presence of everybody.
Just one comment here.
Go
One of the things, according to the Midrash again, somehow, one of the things lending itself to the arrogance of Korach was somehow Korach was aware that he would also have a very distinguished line and
Mhm.
distinguished
Didn't
descendants.
speak to the.
That somehow
Yeah.
Korach was
Yeah,
aware
that's right.
that he would have distinguished descendants, which also made him feel, I should have an appropriate place. And according to the Midrash, Samuel was descended from Korach, and I don't know
Yes.
where that
Yeah.
comes from.
Yeah, there's that, and some of the Psalms.
That's
Even-
right, the
even
Psalms
are-
are
are-
Right.
in the line.
Right.
Oh, okay, so there is mention of the
And that's,
line.
the tradition is that it's recognizing that even though he was so rebellious, he still had some good points to it.
Yeah.
And you
He had
don't
good
hold,
genes.
and you don't hold it against all of his descendants. So the B'nai Korah,
Oh,
the
okay.
descendants of Korah,
Mhm.
could have been loyal adherents.
Yeah.
In the community.
So now I have a question to ask. In verse 22, at the last sentence, when one man sins, will you be wrathful with the whole community? I can remember my grandmother would hear a Jewish name mentioned in the news in a bad sense. And she would say, "Oi, the whole, people will, this will reflect on everyone." My mother did it too. So it's a natural thing. And my wife even does it. Okay, she says.
It's not a female characteristic.
I
There are
guess
men
so.
who do it too.
I know. So the point is, though, is this part of the origin of that custom? I don't know. Because it says it right here. Oh, if one man sins, will you be wrathful to the whole community?
Well, Abraham said that before too. Remember with Sodom, it's
Right.
church is that, yeah.
That's right.
Yeah. And many teachers do that, you know, if one kid misbehaves, they punish the entire group. In the military, Steve, they do the same thing, don't they?
Yeah, tell me about it.
Yeah.
At any military.
Yeah, that is what happens.
At the end of, I guess this is part of 19. Then the presence of the Lord appeared to the whole community.
Yes.
I'm not, if I remember, if I understand, I don't understand what is meant by the presence of the Lord, and referring to when Moses went up to get the 10 Commandments, they said, anyone who sees my face shall not live. So thinking of that, I'm not sure what is meant by the presence of the Lord appeared to the whole community.
Well, in Hebrew, it's kavod.
Yeah, that's right. Michael, you're right. That's exactly why it says for the whole community that there's an appearance, but it's not, I don't know, a vision or,
The majesty, the majesty.
the magic, well, yeah, it's the majesty or the honor or the, a sense of being in God's presence, but not really seeing God. Moses is the other one who sees God.
But this could have been.
Kind of.
It's just been the pillar of smoke
Um,
as opposed to the pillar of
yeah,
fire.
but the pillars of smoke of fire don't speak. And this presence of the Lord does speaks.
But it could have.
Could be,
It
sure.
could be,
Sure.
and God could speak through that pillar.
Yeah, could be.
Like, it
That's
could
right.
have been another burning bush.
Yeah.
For all we know. But it's not mentioned, so you can come up with. And
Well, I'm not
Michael, I
sure.
think that was very good because.
I'm not sure that there was a pillar of fire inside the tent of meeting.
No.
Fire, fire marshal. But and of course, the word in Hebrew, kavod,
Mhm.
which is translated as honor, or it's kof bet daled, which also is kaved, which is heavy. Heaviness.
The heaviness.
So
Right,
that's.
okay. So any other?
Michael, did that answer your question though?
I'm not sure. I apologize. I'm just, no, I'm not sure. Cause does Moses have to convince the community that what he perceives the presence of the Lord is the Lord?
That's the only thing you get. Moshe also didn't see God. He asked to see his face and he was rejected. It was about the presence, which is a very nice way of putting it for all of us. If we are in the presence of, and not just seeing a very,
So it's perceived.
well, I think it's more like sense. You know, my rabbis used to say the question of do you believe in God is not the right one, but do you experience God? Meaning that it's a sense of being surrounded or feeling inside by something that's undescribable like a face. because no one saw the face. You see my face and you'll die.
You know, we each have a different perception.
It's, well, you can call it perception.
And that's the quote unquote, that's the miracle of this kind of experience, is that all of them, same thing at Mount Sinai, is that all of them perceived it or sensed it, or I'm putting heard in question marks, heard the voice in the same way.
Yeah.
That's the,
Including you, Mike. You were there too.
That's what they say.
Yes.
Whole
our soul, at
generation.
least our souls were.
Yes,
Right.
yes. Okay.
I would like to point out, I'm not sure you got there or not, I wasn't following very well. On verse 22, are we there already?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, it says, Vayomru el Elohei haruchot. And they said, what's in English? 22. They first say, oh God, God of the spirits of all flesh. It's a very interesting statement of calling God the God of all spirits or something. Ruchot can be lechol davar, lechol basar. It's a novelty kind of say.
I think it's again, one of these phrases or euphemisms that it's not that God contains or is composed of all breath. It's that that Adonai is the, you know, is the makor, is the source of all of our breaths, of
Yes.
all of our lives, all of our spirits.
Yeah. Of
And
everyone.
You're
Yeah,
talking
my point
about God being able to take the lives away, you know, and end those lives.
But my point is more that I have not heard that kind of statement, that God is God of all the spirits, of
Right.
all of us.
I don't know if it's the first time, I don't remember seeing the phrase.
Yeah, it sounds more Native American than us.
Well, what happens when God creates Adam?
He
The
breathes it,
process.
gives him the breath of life, yeah,
Right.
right, but it's not like a title of the deity,
Right.
which this seems to be.
Yeah, but who's the they in 22? Is it the portion, because I'm understanding it, that it's the portion of the congregation that ended up in the middle of all this. They're not actually the followers of Korah, but this is the general
Aaron and
congregation. And
Aaron
they
and
are,
Moses.
and so they're saying, they're the ones falling on their face and saying that, you know, they're seeing that this is a very, very dangerous encounter. And they fell upon their faces. Is sort of that gesture of, again, of drama in saying, God who, and this is actually the Perush from Hertz here.
Mhm.
He says that he who made all hearts, okay, the God of the spirits of all flesh, and they're translating that as he who made all hearts, can be trusted to distinguish between the guilty and those misled by the guilty. In other words, this is being said by those people who are, maybe some of them were thinking, maybe this Korah is right, but they moved aside and they separated themselves and they said, you know what, God will determine who was
And-
really guilty.
Right, Moses and
And
Aaron,
who is,
Moses and Aaron are saying like in Abraham's, you know, are you gonna, there may be some innocent people there.
Right.
You know, are you gonna kill all of them?
so the they is Moses and Aaron.
I think the they is Moses and Aaron.
Okay,
Right.
okay, because that, maybe that makes a little more
Because
sense.
if you go back to verse 20, that's being addressed,
Mhm.
okay? So, any other comments? So verse 25 and why don't we go through 35? Okay. Would you care to read again?
Help me with the names.
Okay, we all will, we'll all chip in.
Moses rose and went to Dathan and Abiram, the elders of Israel following him. He addressed the community saying, move away from the presence of these wicked men and touch nothing that belongs to them, lest you be wiped out for all their sins. So they withdrew from the abodes of Karan, Dathan, and Abiram. Now, Dathan and Abiram, how far did you want me to
Go all the way down to
Yeah.
the end of 35.
Now Dathan came out, and they stood at the entrance of their tents with their wives, their children, and their little ones. And Moses said, by this you shall know that it was the Lord who sent me to do all things, that they are not of my own devising. If these men die as all men do, if their lot to be common fate of all mankind, it was not the Lord who sent me. But if the Lord brings forth something unheard of, so that the ground opens its mouth wide and swallows them up with all that belongs to them, and let them go down alive into Sheol, you shall know that these men have spurned the Lord. Scarcely then he finished speaking all these words when the ground under them burst asunder. And the earth opened its mouth and swallowed them up with their households, all Korah's people, and all their possessions. They went down alive into Sheol with all that belonged to them, and the earth closed over them, and they vanished from the midst of the congregation. All Israel around them fled at their shrieks, for they said, the earth might swallow us. And the fire went forth from the Lord and consumed the 250 men offering the incense.
Okay. That's a very harsh punishment.
Very dramatic.
Very
Yeah,
dramatic.
it wasn't an ordinary
That's
death.
right.
Yeah. It was-
And
Well, it's not the ordinary, Steve. It doesn't happen on regular basis.
In Yiddish, they call it Misa Mishuna, right? It's a drinking.
so with
That you
this,
wish on your enemy.
yeah, you gotta be careful what you wish. So what do you take from this? It's why is it necessary not just for destroying those lives, but also everything around that was of value, clothing, shelter, anything that was in their tents, and do not even touch them. Think of touching those, because the same punishment may be meted out on you. So why is that so severe? That even just touching the item, it could mean your death. Go ahead,
Well,
Steve.
it's sort of the view of cleanliness and uncleanliness in
Mhm.
general. That evil, in this case, the evil taints everything in
Mhm.
its surroundings, so everything goes. It is a very extreme punishment, because what they're implying is, all the innocent children went down too, their households. I think that's what's being implied here. My
It's
rabbi.
not just implied.
Yeah,
It's explicit.
Yeah,
It says it.
yeah, it says, well, all that is unto them, but that implies also children, but,
Right.
Mhm.
my rabbi, when I was bar mitzvah, and this is my bar mitzvah portion, he had a tradition of always asking the bar mitzvah boys some questions on the parashah in front of the congregation, but you could be pretty well prepared, because he always asked the same questions. And if you attended your friends' bar mitzvahs, you know the answers. And one of his favorite questions to ask everybody was, why did the earth open up its mouth? And the answer to that was because they opened up their mouths against Moses. It was midah keneged midah. It was measure for measure, inappropriate punishment.
Okay,
And the part that strikes me is they went down a lot. They weren't struck dead. They somehow just fell into
The earth opened up and
and
they.
swallowed them up.
yeah, that's right.
Right.
Now, the same thing it was said when the spies went. They described the land of Canaan as Eretz Ochelet Yoshvea, the land that eats, that devours the citizens of it. So it's a way of speaking there that we heard already. And sometimes I think of Medinat Israel also as Eretz Ochelet Yoshvea. It's a very powerful sense. What kind of place is it that devours the people sitting on it?
Very good point, Rabbi. I appreciate that.
What Sheol, they fell into Sheol, which is a
Okay. go ahead.
unclear Hebrew reference, I think, but the pit, but that ultimately in folklore became evolved and became hell.
Yeah, the netherworld.
So they fell directly into hell too.
Right.
And now, but when you talk about the world of the dead, okay, if you want to, you express it that way?
Yeah, it could be.
Well, with the understanding that they're still alive in that physical place?
Well, the earth swallowed them alive.
Like the son said, they stayed alive.
It doesn't say.
They may be living on another plane, physically or is it spiritually? That they live on a different level.
Okay.
I mean, I don't know. I don't know.
No,
Believe me, I don't know. I have no idea.
To the best of my knowledge, the Torah doesn't define
Right.
death.
Right.
Okay, there are any number of different phrases that they use, gathered unto your father, gathered unto your kin, things like that, or just, Vayamot Moshe. Moses died and was buried there. But exactly what that meant at that time,
Yeah.
I would defer to the medical people on what you think or what, on how they understood it. And it might very well be that you lived on in then. And there are people who believe this now. So,
Yes.
okay, and it's certainly one of the valid, I wouldn't say mainstream, but one of the accepted Jewish answer to the question, what happens after we die? Is that there are those who do believe that we live on, albeit not in our bodies, but that we do live on in some physical place, depending on what you want to call it. If you want to call it heaven, hell, if you want to call it Sheol, if you want to call it in God's glory, whatever. But it's an interesting question of whether you'd use the phrase that they're still living after death.
Now, isn't there, when Saul resurrects later, much later on in the Bible,
Right.
when Saul resurrects, I think Prophet Samuel, is it Prophet Samuel?
No, it's Yecheskel.
And isn't the expression in the narrative then that he's bringing them up from Sheol?
It could very well be. I don't remember exactly on.
That's
Very well be. Very well
Because
be.
again, the whole evolution of the ideas of the afterlife, which were, I guess, please correct me if I'm wrong, but I think they were sort of later rabbinic
Sort of, sure.
embellishments that
Sure.
actually got further embellished by Christianity that was
Absolutely,
an offshoot.
absolutely,
Um,
absolutely. And interestingly enough, Sheol, the word, the verb, the root means questioning.
Uh-huh.
Okay, there's this place that's questionable. We're not really sure what it
You know what,
means.
I'm
You
gonna
know,
look it
kind
up.
of-
I'm gonna see where it comes
Sure.
from.
Yeah, so
Yeah, but-
all, the verb is also to borrow. So
Sure.
it's,
Right, to request and to borrow.
Sheol,
now
the
in
other-
the meantime, if you guys can explain to me verse 30.
Verse 30?
Yeah,
Okay, what about it in verse
I
30?
don't understand it. Ve'im bria ivara Adonai. What does that mean?
If the way that, right? Lord brings about something unheard of. So,
But
Yeah.
Hashem will create a phenomenon in that. So that there is an issue of bria here, of creation, that it doesn't matter.
something that wasn't in their experience,
you know,
something that they may,
Right.
that, I wouldn't say that they've never heard of, but they've never experienced an earthquake.
That this was a novelty that was given, it was
Yes,
a new creation.
right, right.
That's strange.
an etymological the etymological dictionary about
Sure.
Sheol, okay?
Sure.
Which is, they define it as the underworld. It isn't exactly an afterlife. It's just
Right,
undefined,
sure,
a
sure.
weird, dark place,
Yeah,
it's not really living.
it's the next step, it's the next step past purgatory.
But it says that it's of uncertain etymology, according to the scholar who made this etymological. And Aramaic has some words in it, but it has shiula and sheula. And it says it's a Hebrew loan word. So it's just, it was just
Hebrew.
a loan word, but it was borrowed by Hebrew, kind of like
Okay.
shohan. Is not in its origin Hebrew, it came from,
Yeah,
I
it
don't
has
know,
nothing to do with-
Egyptian or
Has nothing to
something.
do with Sholeach, right?
No,
Yeah,
it's
right,
got
yeah,
nothing to do with anything. It doesn't have a 3-word, 3-letter.
yeah.
So there are in Hebrew totally borrowed words
Of
from
course.
other Semitic languages. And this is one of those borrowed words that I guess maybe the Canaanites had some sort of image of Sheol and we borrowed it from
I
them.
think it's similar to the word Azazel, because it's the use. I think that Jacob says, Yered nafshi sheola, you're going to make so much cuts. So you sent me somewhere, and the same thing, we send it to Azazel. It's like, I don't know, making something that you can say that you're going to do something. I'll send you to, I don't know what we use today. Oh, you're going to kill me. You're going to, never mind.
Any other
It
discussion?
obviously meant something to them then.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, why would you want to punish people if they touched an item?
Well, it's just an,
It's a-
it was part of the elaborate belief that, anything bad
Right.
contaminates like crazy, like in general, also the
Mhm.
all the rules of leprosy, you
Yes.
have to burn this and burn that and separate this, and maybe it went into the house too, so check the house out. It's just there was a concept, maybe they were very early in their thinking of contamination.
Yeah,
And public health, that anything bad contaminates.
there's
Um,
a phrase, I do not remember where it is in the rabbinic, but it's one of those phrases that, and anyone who touches something And I think that the Hebrew is dirty, but
Yeah.
it is destined to have that dirt remain with him
Yes.
for his entire life.
Yes, because that's one. The other is that if you touch something, you've added in another sense that helps you remember. Not
Tactile,
necessarily
you
the
mean,
lesson,
yeah.
but the person that was involved, or, the person who said the wrong thing.
Or the moment,
Did the
or the
wrong-
moment, or the place.
Right.
Okay, all
Right.
right.
So it's going to change your memory. And if you remember, it's trying to make you remember in a bad way. So it's not just the physical. I think it's also you can use the word spiritual, you could use just human nature. If you have a coin or a stamp from old Nazi Germany, the entire picture of Nazi Germany comes back to your mind.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what it is. Any object can do that in our brain. It doesn't have to be. That's why we develop our likes and dislikes, because it didn't taste good then. It's certainly not going to taste good now, and that becomes a habit. But same thing. It tasted good then, and you could say it tastes good now for the same reason, or you could say it tasted good then, and now it doesn't taste as good. That opens up questions about your belief system. And same thing, it didn't taste good then, but hey, it's starting to taste good again. Well, that means I have the potential for change, to change and change and disrupt the faith, the pattern of the faith. So maybe it's more than just
I have no problem with that. That we roll around in these containers. But that and again, I don't know the words, I don't know if there are words for this, that our spirit, our soul, our ki, our energy, call it whatever you want, exists on another level. If I wear your shirt, or if I go to Goodwill or something, and I buy somebody's blouse, I'm also taking a part of their energy. So I am very careful about who I touch and what I mean, I know that sounds wacky, and okay, so I'm a little strange, but I am very careful about other people's, like what is that, the wolf in sheep's clothing?
Yeah.
That I am very careful about who I touch and what I allow. And I know that sounds weird, and it's not an OCD thing, it's just my belief system. That this energy,
Yeah.
I don't, it kind of attaches or it influences in some way.
Yeah.
So I'm real careful with stuff like this. It's like,
Yeah,
Yeah.
I bought some clothes at the White Elephant. Now you got me scared.
I'm sorry, I'm sorry. Don't get Washington, I'm going to not a detergent.
There
that-
appears to be good
that-
stuff there.
That we exist on an energetic or a spiritual plane that we can't see with our eyes. I don't always have words to describe.
That's right.
So I can kind of see what you're saying there, like,
If you
don't
look at
touch it.
That's right, because it may then say, it was okay to go against, oh, he had enough courage to stand up to Moses and but for the wrong reason.
Yeah.
And
And
but it could influence you years down the road.
and I don't really have word, I just know how it feels to me.
Yeah.
I don't really have words
It's
to
interesting.
describe the feeling.
That was that was the other commentary, because I also remembered my parents always talking that way too. Maybe it was just in Hicksville.
So I don't
But
I don't know.
I know,
relatives.
I know my parents would felt that way. My grandparents, they would have these stories about, oh, don't do this, don't look at somebody because you may catch that malady from them and things like that. And I don't know if it was Eastern Europe or if it was something that was Jewish. I don't know.
Or both.
Both. I just don't know.
Or just very, very prevalent view of many cultures. I think that it wasn't unique to the Jews or
That's right.
it's an Indian
Yeah.
culture,
Yeah.
probably pretty much the same thing, you know.
Michael want to say something?
Okay.
Thank you. I think the opening of for this portion of what you were speaking about, I think it was, do we live after death? If that was said, I think it is, how do we live after death? And if I remember my lessons from my Orthodox, which was many, many years ago, it's how you live after death. Because in the Judaism that I was taught, we live after death. But it's how we live after death.
Okay. Very good point. Very good point. Any other comments?
And that is tied to the Torah. And the reading of the Torah doesn't stop at the teaching of it, because you are, God would count your qualification on how you're going to live after death. Is it going to be a good life after death or not? And this is all dependent on the life God gave you on this earth, which is tied to the Torah. And I'm trying to remember all my lessons from my youth. So, and that's again from the Orthodox, if I remember so correctly.
Okay, very good. I think this is probably a good place to,
At the end of chapter 16.
yeah, at the end of 16, because we'll still talk about this next week. And anything else that anyone wants that came to mind or anything about
Yes.
today? Yes, go ahead, Steve.
I was just struggling to remember the name of the movie, and I mentioned this movie to you once about that sort of implements the Hasidic.
You see,
that-
so they can hear.
I was trying to remember the name of a movie that's not, meant necessarily in general, knowledge, but I thought it was a great movie. It's called To Dust, and it illustrates Hasidic beliefs on the afterlife. And I don't want to spoil it, but it's got Matthew Broderick in it, so it's going to be good. It's got Matthew Broderick in a little known Jewish actor, I think, who's not Jewish.
To Dust.
It's called To Dust. Its director is Sean Snyder, and it's very, very interesting about, it's a little, again, no spoilers, so, but it just illustrates the belief also at least a portion of the Hasidic community of how life after death operates.
What you just reminded me of something. There is a belief, and I don't know where it comes from, that, and it's also in our prayers. I forget where it shows up, but at the time of when Elijah comes, okay,
The Messianic age.
the Messianic age, that there's that all of the souls and the bodies of all of the dead will rise again in Israel.
Well, that's, you talking about the dead, you talking about the dead bones?
Yeah.
That's, oh, okay.
Dead bones.
That's not, it's Ezekiel, not Elijah.
Ezekiel,
Yeah.
Ezekiel.
And Ezekiel, and it says that's why people want to be buried in Israel, because they say that those are the people that are going to rise first. So many believers send their
Otherwise, it's a very long roll.
That's why I'm saving my frequent flyer miles.
No, but it suddenly hit me that in our previous discussion about Shaul. You know, where do the spirits fly or the bodies
Yeah,
live
yeah.
or things like
Yeah.
that.
Even though I think the reference in Elijah is more metaphor.
Yeah.
It's actually, it was a sort of spiritual resurrection.
Right.
Of
Well, yeah, it was resurrection of the people, of the people.
of the people,
Right,
you know,
yeah.
there was a valley of dry bones, and then all the bones got together and they rose up, and so.
But the Greeks also had a story about that with the teeth of,
Oh, yeah,
of the
right.
deceased warriors. And they were strewn on the beaches or wherever, and a whole army rises up from them.
Huh. Okay.
So
Haven't heard of that.
it's so we're not the only ones to think this way. So, but there were a lot of different stories about this. Well, any other announcements?
I don't, it's up in the air if I'm gonna be here next Saturday.
Oh, I did, you reminded me of something, I'm not
Right.
going to be doing the hybrid.
We're going to just.
We're
be doing
going
Zoom.
to go to Zoom because I might
Because
not be attending.
There's not gonna be anyone available
Okay.
to set the room up.
So is it
So we're going back to Zoom.
going back to just Zoom?
It makes it easy.
Okay.
I just,
That's too bad, because
Yeah.
face to face is nice. But
I.
But understood, all right, understood.
So we'll do it that way, and what I'm going to do is, so. What I will do, I will send a note to Stacy.
Yes.
And I will, since you're not gonna be able to do
Yeah,
that,
yeah.
but we need to also include where we are in our reading, so I'll start doing, I'll just add that in,
Oh, okay.
okay?
And you can, when you send it to Stacy, just FYI, the link is not going to change, and this was a question of Michael. Michael G had a question about that. The link is gonna be the same. The link is not gonna change until the end of February. Then it does, because this is some sort of limited subscription. So you have to renew it. So through the end of February, the link is gonna stay the same. So Michael, if you wanna put the link as a sort of something on your desktop or something, you can just click on the link all the time, the same link. And
Yeah, well, I have the present link on the desktop. I
so
have
you
an
can just-
icon. I have it, I put it on an icon, so it's not a problem.
Okay, so you can just keep doing that.
I put it on the calendar, put it on the calendar.
Why not?
Oh, it is on the calendar.
No, on your own calendar, you put Torah study and the link.
Oh, you could do
Because
that.
otherwise.
I'm not sure how to do it.
Okay,
Thanks,
Shabbat
everybody.
shalom.
Shabbat shalom.
Shalom.
But-
Thank you. Thank you, Marty. Thank you.
so I'm gonna need your name and, if you write it out along with your email address. If you, before you leave today.